Welcome to War Thunder with Subdude. How y'all doing today? Well, I just want to have a little bit of a discussion over gameplay. Now, Gaijin's got a bunch of different game modes. Let's just look through them real quick. We have Air Arcade, Air Realistic, and Simulator Battles, as well as Tank Arcade, Tank Realistic, and again, Squadron Action Events, Squadron Realistic, you know, Realistic, um, Air Assault Mode, Tank Assault Mode. All wonderful, all glorious. Then we have World War Mode. World War Mode, haven't really gotten into it. So, here we sit. We've got all these different modes, but what Gaijin has done is basically told air realistic people you can play with your planes and you can play with your planes. Same with simulator. Um, but if you just want to play with your planes, you can't play against the players that are playing tanks. And that is pretty short-sighted on Gaijin's part. Now, here's the reason I'm going to say that. If you ever looked at creating a custom battle, you can create a custom battle with 64 players. That's 32 players on a side, which means Gaijin's servers can handle up to 64 individual players in a battle scenario. Think about that for a minute. 32 opponents on a side. Not just one side, both sides. Now, if they can do that, I'm sure they've built in a safety margin there. So it can probably handle upwards of 50 players per side, which is 100. I might be wrong there. If I am, so what? It's a guesstimation. And any good engineer is going to build in a safety factor. So, 32 on a side is a pretty good safety factor. Now, if they've got this 32 on a side capable server, then why can't they set up a game mode where you've got 16 aircraft pilots, 16 tankers against 16 aircraft pilots and 16 tankers? Now, the tankers are going to be going, oh, that's horrible. You'll just be in there bombing the tankers. Well, that's why you have an air force of 16 pilots to keep bombers and attackers off from you. And if they don't do their job, you have every right in the world to be upset with them. Just as the team that presumably I would be on would have the same amount of angst with me for not keeping fighters and bombers off from my people. Now, I don't play tanks. I've ground a good way through the German line. Just to prove that, I'll let you see. You know, I'd say that's a pretty good way through the German line. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm not interested in tanks anymore. Um, I also ground a good way through the American line, but nowhere near as far as I did on the German lineup. But I like flying. I'm not a tanker. I'm definitely a flyer. As a matter of fact, I'm a bomber pilot and an attack bomber, especially with the Arado. I love to get in there and plant bombs on targets. And I don't mean those strategic targets, which are absolutely worthless. Now, would it be fun to be able to go up against a bunch of tankers? Well, yeah. And it would be nice if we could go 16 on 16 with 16 on 16, which basically 64, 32 on a team going at it. And this garbage of getting multiple tanks is another thing. You know, realistic means you get one bite at the apple. You don't get to come back in another plane just because you got shot down. You're done. Your match is over. Goodbye. You might as well just exit out and, take your rewards that you get, if you get any, and sign up for another match. But that's what combined arms fights should be. We're not getting combined arm fights. What we're getting are, well, I won't call it BS, but they are rather garbage fights. I mean, you'll get a tanker who's got, two, three, I don't know how many tanks he can get. I'm killing away, and he gets 3 spawns. Okay, great. He's got 3 tanks he can play with, or he can play a tank and then an airplane and then a tank. But what if he was consigned to a tank? Might be more inclined to learn how to play that tank properly and learn a good tank to use when going up against an enemy. Instead of this, well, I'll rush the cap point and take the cap point and bail out and get into an airplane and come in and bomb. No, you rush the cap point, you take the cap point and run your ass butt out of there so that you don't get killed while holding the cap point. But if you bail, you're done. You quit. You exited the game for whatever reason. If you get shot and killed, you're done. You've exited the game. This garbage of getting 3 kills or 3 lives is, arcade plus. Oh yes, that's exactly what it is. Because even in simulator, you're getting multiple bites at the apple. That is truly arcade plus. Now, I realize that some of the tankers are going to be going, no, it's not. We don't have any markers to work with. Yeah, so what's your point? You get killed, you come back in another tank. Or come back in an airplane. That isn't very realistic. And as for simulator, not very simulator either. Matter of fact, it's pretty garbage. I don't remember another game other than, well, not even World of Tanks does that. Once you lose your tank in World of Tanks, you're done there too. So, this three bites at the apple routine is ridiculous and needs to go. And yes, tankers, you need to man up. One shot, one kill means you're out. So learn to play your tanks properly. Learn to ambush. Learn to hold your positions. You know, cover means everything. And if we go with a 64 player groups where you've got 16 air on both sides and 16 tanks on both sides and larger battlefields, these teeny tiny little ground forces battlefields are absolute stupidity. The air battles and ground battles should be fought on the same size map. Ground forces should not be limited to just this tiny little fighting space. And even the largest ground forces map right now is insignificant in comparison to the air maps. Now, some of you are going to be going, but you can drive, it takes forever to drive my Churchill and who cares? Who cares? Make the map, give it some realistic objectives. Give the matches realistic objectives. You're the Germans, you're the Russians, you're the whoever, and your job is to prevent the enemy team, which may be Americans, it may be British, it may be Japanese, it could be Russian, whoever is supposed to be on the attack, they have an objective to get to. If they can't get to that objective, they lose. You win. And the Air Force has to cover. That's what fighters and fighter bombers are for. Now everyone's been throwing up a big hissy fit about Tier 6. Especially, oh my God, the rockets! Oh my God, the rockets! The missiles, the missiles! No, you don't need missiles in Tier 6. And I know somebody's going to be going, you don't know diddly. Well, I've been around longer than most of you guys that have been playing. And no, you don't need missiles. As a matter of fact, gun kills were possible. But most of the planes that have been thought of for Tier 6, and let's go with the F-100, it was used 99% of the time as a fighter bomber, not an escort fighter. It was a fighter bomber. Okay, there were some that were used in the Wild Weasel role, and they'd carry some Shrikes. But that's an anti-radiation missile, which would be effective against, what would that be? What type of platform? The only one that has radar. The AAA guns. And all you have to do is give the Shrike a limited range, and at that point you would have to be bringing your aircraft within range of those guns to let go. As for the air-to-air missiles, don't need them. The only ones I would even consider would be air-to-ground, and we don't need those. Fighter bombers carry bombs and rockets. Check the videos on F-100 strikes during Vietnam. You'll see they were using Zuni rockets, 2-inch and 3-inch rockets, unguided mass volley rockets. They were using bombs, 500s and 750s, And when the bombers got in, and I mean the attack bombers, that would be the A4s, A6s, and A7s, they were using anywhere between a 500 and a 2,000 pound bomb. And they also had air to ground missiles, Mavericks, blah, 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 bullpups, and the like. We don't necessarily need the missiles, but we can use the rockets, we can use the bombs, and we can use ground attack and fighter bombers. But fighter bombers can't exist as long as fighters are protecting your side. Now, as soon as you guys can get that through your heads, maybe we can start going after Gaijin to start thinking about this properly. Because right now, they're just thinking about more tanks, tanks, tanks. They're not thinking about gameplay. Gameplay is suffering massively. I would love to be playing against you tankers. You probably wouldn't want me playing against you. I would probably make a mess of your little tanks with my aircraft because I know how to play properly. And I'm not above bringing in heavy ordnance on your target. But Gaijin has the capability in its servers to handle up to 64 players at once. Now they just have to create the missions and mission objectives on large enough maps to make it worthwhile. Think about the alternate history Kreminsk map, where you start off at the waterfront, and gee, they've got a pretty nice map there of the waterfront already. But you have to break out over the hills, over the mountains, and get to that airfield. And your air team has to cover you, where the enemy is going to be holding the ridge line against you to keep you trapped down in the bowl where that city is, Novorossiysk, or I think, I'm not sure. But that's what they need to do. They don't necessarily need these capture point here, capture point there, oh my god, capture the points. That's stupid play. Objectives. Capture the airfield. That's a real objective. Now, I don't know if anyone would like to continue, expound upon that. And it really would be something that we could do. Because, like I said, the servers have the capability. It's just a matter of Gaijin taking the time to actually do the work. And it's missions and maps. The alternate history commits map has all sorts of possibilities. I've already said in one video that that would be an awesome map for using with helicopters because of the mountains there along the water, the coastal mountains. Oh God, coming over that in one of the passes and then going after tanks, or ground units, taking out the air, the AAA, the artillery pieces. to smooth the way for the tanks that are advancing over the pass. Oh, yeah. It really is a bit of use your imagination. Come on, Gaijin, you can do better, and we as players should be demanding you do better. I'm demanding it. What about the rest of you? This Subdude signing off. I know it's not been a very exciting video, but I hope it's sparked some interest. Take care, folks. We'll catch you in the skies. Bye-bye.